Welcome back to Duel Academy. Today we're taking a look at another requested deck, this time Sphinx Control featuring Grave Ohja. Now this is a weird deck that originates from the first GX pack, Lost Millennium. The Sphinx cards are all focused around a playstyle of flip summoning rock earth monsters, and Grave Ohja was a piece of support for this strategy that burns your opponent for 300 each time you flip summon a monster. Now on paper that sounds really weak, and it's because it is. I mean, 300 damage is absolutely pitiful, but this actually apparently was the win condition for the Sphinx cards, as a little bit later this playstyle would get an entire structure deck with the boss monster and cover art being Exxod, Master of the Guard, a monster that can only be summoned by tributing these Sphinx monsters, and that does burn damage when you flip summon other monsters. So I guess that's what we have to focus on. I have built this deck completely around utilizing all of the Sphinx cards, including Exxod, and trying to burn our opponent as our main win condition. As always, the full deck list will be down in the description, but without further ado, let's go ahead and just hop right into the duels. Now, first duel is up against Jesse Anderson and his Crystal Beast deck. We open with Cat of Ill Omen and Dark Bribe. This is a pretty decent start. I can set the cat, that way we can stack a stall card to the top of our deck. Dark Bribe is going to serve as great protection for that stall card. I go ahead and grab Gravity Bind because it's just the best one card stall trap that we have in the deck, so I figure it's probably the best thing to do. I'm going to set down the Giant Rat though, because we don't have a ton of monsters in our hand. I want to get some more monsters out of the deck, so I'm going to let at least one attack slip through here, so that way we can get a search off the Giant Rat, but otherwise the Gravity Bind is there to protect our life points. Now this is something I do like about this card, Chirosphinx or Criosphinx, I always forget what the name is. It's actually searchable off of Giant Rat because it only has 1200 attack. So I can float right into that, use the Gravity Bind to protect it, and now we're in business. I draw the Grave Ohja for turn. This is great. We can start doing our actual win conditions. So Golem Sentry is going to bounce a monster. Criosphinx forces them to discard a card anytime a monster is returned from the field to the hand, so that is going to make him discard, and we can just keep doing this over and over and over again, slowly burning for 300 damage each time. At least on the next turn we end up drawing Grave Ohja, which is going to cut the time to kill in half, which is very nice because it can be pretty boring just sitting there burning for 300 every turn for the entire game. Just speeding up the footage so you don't have to sit through so much of the same thing, I do end up drawing a second Golem Sentry that's going to once again cut the time to kill in half, since now we have 2 flippable monsters each turn, so that's quite nice. Here I end up finding a Guardian Sphinx off the top, so I can go ahead and change out one of these Golem Sentries for the Guardian Sphinx, which just gives us a slightly more powerful monster, but it's not actually going to kill our opponent any faster. Sure enough, after all that slow burning, we've got our opponent down to just 200 life points, and we're going to be able to add Exxod to our hand because I searched it off of the Gold Sarcophagus. That's going to allow us just to style a little bit, summon out the Exxod, and then flip summon for game. Next up, we have a duel against Liaside. This is one of the teachers. He plays a pretty powerful deck based around the Demise ritual cards and Dark Master Zork. We can see he searches out Demise early there and then takes 50 damage swinging into our Giant Rat. This is a little worrying, and this is kind of why I wanted to try this matchup, because Demise and Zork are going to cause huge problems for a deck like this since they just have constant removal. I end up Dark Bribing the ritual spell because I just don't want him to have that yet. I really want to be able to just barely hang on and stall long enough to hopefully get in a position where we can deal with a ritual monster should it come out. We managed to get the Guardian Sphinx on board, bounce everything, and then I swing in for 17. It's a little risky into the 3 back row, but I wanted to try to get some damage going. Unfortunately, Dark Master Zork hits the board. He's going to roll a good roll on the die, take out our Cat of Ill Omen, and swing over the Sphinx. This is a very bad situation for us to be in just because we really don't have anything right now to deal with this Zork. I try to crash the giant rats, that way I can summon a Golem Sentry. At this point, all we can really do is just hang on for dear life with the Nightmare Steelcage and the Swords of Revealing Light. Unfortunately, he has the MST to deal with the Steelcage, and he rolls good on the Zork. We're really hoping that he rolls a 6. That's pretty much our only hope of getting back into this game. If he rolls a 6, then he blows up all of his own monsters. So that'll take out the Zork and anything else he puts on the board, but he activates End of the World again, so he's still really trying to bring out that Demise King of Armageddon in his hand, and I just can't let that happen, because if that card hits the board, we just lose. He's going to pay 2,000, take out our back row, and we are just going to get absolutely swept. So at this point, I have to just desperately hang on to our stall. Again, he doesn't roll the 6, he gets rid of the Interceptor cannons. I draw Gravity Bind though, and Gravity Bind is pretty good because that will indefinitely hold him off, assuming that he doesn't find any spell trap destruction. Golem Sentry is good here. If we can get that to survive, then we could start balancing things, which is a nice counter to rituals, but unfortunately Giant Trunade and the Zork roll is just not going to go in our favor. Next up, we're taking on Masha. This is an Obelisk Blue student. I'm trying to remember what she plays. If I remember right, it's Fire Tribal. I'm sure we'll see in just a second in this replay. Sure enough, yep, UFO Turtle. She's going to use Shrink for some reason to protect it. Not really sure why you would ever do that, but Jinzo comes out. Now, Jinzo is a huge threat. However, since she destroyed the giant rat, we can just float into a Golem Sentry and easily bounce it back on our turn, which I believe is what I go ahead and do here, if I remember correctly. I'm going to set the Cat of Ill Omen, flip up the Golem Sentry, bounce the Jinzo, sure enough, and set the Gravity Bind. This way, we are pretty much already on track to start our win condition. We have the Grave Ohja in hand, so we can start doing burn next turn. All we have to do is just make sure that Jinzo does not stay on the board. Unfortunately, though, she has the Premature Burial and is going to immediately be able to summon him back out. It's okay though, we can still hang in there for now. We have a few options. I decide to go ahead and use Monster Reborn to summon back the Golem Sentry. This way I can use the Nightmare Steelcage to protect it, and then next turn bounce the Jinzo back. Cat of Ill Omen is going to allow us to search. I'm going to choose to stack the Solemn Judgment, my reasoning being that I really just want to have protection for the Gravity Bind. If we can keep Jinzo off the board, Solemn will deal with every other problem, and even Solemn can negate the Jinzo summon if we're really desperate. I go ahead and use the Gold Sarc here to search for Exxod just because I wanted to summon him, and I go ahead and use Golem Sentry, bounce back the Jinzo, of course, burn for 300 with the Grave Ohja. We're going to set the Golem Sentry back down. We still have one more turn of Nightmare Steelcage, so I'm not too afraid of the Jinzo, but Soul Exchange is a huge threat. I'm going to have to negate that. I just can't let her tribute our Golem Sentry to get a Jinzo out. That is a huge problem. Down comes Horus, level 6, which I was not expecting, and I cannot let that thing destroy a monster, although it probably wouldn't matter because I could just bounce it back anyways, but I decided to just save the Cat of Ill Omen with the Gravity Bind, and then we can use it as tribute fodder for the Criosphinx. I once again flip up Golem Sentry, bounce a card. Criosphinx discards the Solar Flare Dragon, which is a really good hit because our opponent having burn cards is not very good for us, considering how slow we are at actually winning the game. Burn cards are a pretty big threat, so I have to be very careful with this Solar Flare Dragon here. I know that if I don't take this Solar Flare Dragon out, it's going to kill me in 4 turns because she can just keep re-summoning it. I need a way to clear it off the board permanently. Now, I had to think for a minute what I wanted to do, and I decide I'm going to try to really high roll here and discard it with the Criosphinx, and sure enough, I really could not have asked for a better outcome. Criosphinx on the first try discarding that Solar Flare Dragon from her hand. This is very good. I summon the other Grave Ohja, that way we can get some more burn damage going, and I go ahead and on our turn get rid of the Criosphinx and swap it for the Exxod. Now we've got some serious burn going. Golem Sentry is going to flip up. That's 1,600 points of damage and bouncing back the UFO Turtle. Now I can just do this a couple more times and we're going to win the game. So overall, what are my thoughts on the Sphinx Grave Ohja control deck? It's very gimmicky, very silly, and it's better than I honestly thought it would be. It takes forever to actually defeat an opponent because we just do so little burn damage with each flip. There is a lot of stall in this deck, which really helps make that burn an actual reasonable win condition. But of course, there are other burn decks that do what this does much faster. So realistically, the only reason to play this deck is for the novelty factor. But regardless, I had a lot of fun experimenting with this. If you like this video, make sure to leave a like and subscribe for more Tag Force content. Of course, I have plenty more videos on the way, lots more decks that I'm planning to talk about very soon. If you have a deck that you would like to see me showcase, make sure you leave a comment and let me know. And I've got a handful of other non-deck showcase videos that I'm working on that might take just a little bit longer. And that's enough rambling for me. I'll see you again soon.